I have no idea if any of these names are going to be pronounced correctly, so if anybody has any comments they want to leave about how to pronounce these names, yeah, I will ignore them completely. Okay, here's what we're going to do today. All right, I'm going to start reading through the book of Judges. I'm going to start with chapter 1. I'm going to start with taking notes, and I'm going to read it as if, I've had no knowledge of Judges whatsoever, right? And, just kind of give you my process for, just taking notes and just initial thoughts and all that kind of stuff. So, and you just kind of goof around, and I don't know, I'll show you just, going through it as if I didn't know some of the details already, and, writing down questions and things like that. So, also, I'm just going to try to do this in one sitting, right? So, just to show how having a daily Bible study time really doesn't have to take, 3 hours out of your day or anything like that, all right? So let's get this done quickly. Here we go. All right. So, Judges 1. After the death of Joshua, the people of Israel inquired of the Lord, who shall go up first for us against the Canaanites to fight against them? All right, so after the death of Joshua. Okay. The Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have given the land into his hand. All right, Judah goes up. And Judah said to Simeon, his brother, come up with me into the territory allotted to me, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I likewise will go with you into the territory allotted to you. So Simeon went with him. Then Judah went up, and the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand, and they defeated 10,000 of them at Bezek. And, Bezek. I have no idea if any of these names are going to be pronounced correctly, so if anybody has any comments they want to leave about how to pronounce these names, yeah, I will ignore them completely. All right. They found Adoni-Bezek at Bezek and fought against him and defeated the Canaanites and the Perizzites. All right, so Judah goes up and he fights Bezek. All right. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they pursued him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. And Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and their big toes cut off used to pick up scraps under my table. As I have done, so God has repaid me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Okay, so Bezek. Sad ending for that guy, right? So, as in, no thumbs, no toes. Yet, somehow seems to be some sense of justice going on. And the men of Judah, this is verse 8, and the men of Judah fought against Jerusalem and captured it and struck it with the edge of the sword and set the city on fire. Now, initially what that makes me think of is the people of Israel are attacking the land. They're taking Israel essentially, and this is them taking Jerusalem, which is very interesting. And afterward, the men of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites who lived in the hill country in the Negev and in the lowland. And Judah went against the Canaanites who lived in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron was formerly Kiriath Arba. And they defeated Sheshai and Ahiman and Talmai. The people who actually had those names would probably be completely disturbed with how I pronounce them. From there they went against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir was formerly Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, "He who attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give him Aksah, my daughter, for a wife." Alright, well that's interesting. So, Caleb wants a city and offers his daughter. Verse 13, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it. Okay, and he gave him Aksah, his daughter, for a wife. Gives his daughter to his nephew. Ew! It's cousins. You know, alright, no judgment, alright? This is Bible times, okay? Just, it is what it is, alright? And he gave him Aksah, his daughter, for a wife. When she came to him, she urged him to ask her father for a field. And she dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Give me a blessing, since you have set me in the land of the Negev. Give me also springs of water." And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. Cool. And the descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up with the people of Judah from the city of palms into the wilderness of Judah, which lies in the Negev, near Arad. And they went and settled with the people. And Judah went with Simeon, his brother, and they defeated the Canaanites, who inhabited Zephath, and devoted it to destruction. Oh, that's friendly. Devoted it to destruction. So the name of the city was called Hormah. Judah also captured Gaza with its territory, and Ashkelon with its territory, and Ekron with its territory. And the Lord was with Judah, and he took possession of the hill country, but he could not drive out the inhabitants of the plain, because they had chariots of iron. All right, so let's go visit this Judah again. Judah couldn't get the plains. All right. So he couldn't drive out the inhabitants of the plain. That's verse 19. It says because they had chariots of iron. So, little advanced technology, I guess. And Hebron was given to Caleb, and Moses, as Moses had said. And he drove out from it the 3 sons of Anak. But the people of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. So, Benjamin, they left Jebusites there. So the Jebusites have lived with the people of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. All right. The house of Joseph also went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them, and the house of Joseph scouted out Bethel. Now the name of the city was formerly Luz, and the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Please show us the way into the city, and we will deal kindly with you." And he showed them the way into the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man and all his family go. And the man went to the land of the Hittites and built a city, and called its name Luz. That is the name to this day. Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and its villages, or Tanakh and its villages, or the inhabitants of Dor and its villages, or the inhabitants of Iblim and its villages, or the inhabitants of Megiddo and its villages, for the Canaanites persisted in dwelling in the land. When Israel grew strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not drive them out completely. So, okay, Israel does not drive out the people. Okay, and Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so the Canaanites lived in Gezer among them. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, or the inhabitants of Nahalal, so the Canaanites lived among them, but became subject to forced labor. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko, sure that's how you pronounce that, or the inhabitants of Sidon, or of Ahlab, or of Achzib, or of Helba, or of Afik, or of Rehob. All right, you get to that list of names that you have no idea how to pronounce, and you just kind of give up, right? But don't do that. So the Asherites lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. Notice the main part. It says, Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko or the inhabitants of Sidon. All right, and it says, so the idea here is that the people of Asher did not drive out the Canaanites, right? So you don't have to know how to pronounce every single name. Just don't worry about it. Get the picture, which is people of God not driving out the people of Canaan. All right, now let's go on to verse 33. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh or the inhabitants of Beth Anath. So they lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and of Beth Anath became subject to forced labor for them. So Israel didn't drive them out, but they used them, okay? The Amorites pressed the people of Dan back into the hill country, for they did not allow them to come down to the plain. So the people of Dan were struggling. Again, that's another tribe of Israel. The Amorites persisted in dwelling in Mount Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shaalbim, but the hand of the house of Joseph rested heavily on them, and they became subject to forced labor. And the border of the Amorites ran from the ascent of Akrabim, from Selah and upward. So that's kind of like a geography lesson there, right? So you're learning where the borders are, and we kind of skip over that stuff. And you know what? For right now, all right, if you don't have a good picture of how all those territories looked in your mind, then yeah, just know that the border of the Amorites, right, ran close enough so that it was an issue. Okay, so now let's look at chapter 2 for just a second. All right, so that was real quick going over chapter 1. Let's do this first part of chapter 2. Now the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you into the land that I swore to give to your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? So again, notice, all right, it's disobedience, okay? It says that God said that he will never break the covenant with Israel as long as Israel never makes a covenant with the inhabitants of the land. But what do we see here? We see that as the people of Israel are trying to conquer the land, they're not doing it all of the way. They're not pushing the people out. They're letting the Canaanites stay in the land. So it says, so in verse 3, so now I say, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare to you. As soon as the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the people of Israel, the people lifted up their voices and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochim, I guess, Bochim, something. And they sacrificed there to the Lord. So the people get a message from the Lord saying, you did not do what I told you. All right, so again, all right, real quickly, that was just, I don't know, 15 minutes or something like that to read a chapter, and I'm reading it out loud, which is naturally slower, and I'm giving ridiculously stupid commentary as we go through it, all right? So for you, it would be much faster. You can take a page of notes, no problem, all right, and then just kind of do this, reflections, right? Reflections. Okay, well, what happened? Okay, God said, capture the land, right? He gave them the leadership to do so at the beginning. The people kind of went halvesies there, right? Just got the job halfway done. Maybe more than half, I don't know. But point is it wasn't all the way done, okay? And so we got a result, which was basically God saying, you dishonored the covenant, the covenant that we made, and so God takes away his protection. So no protection. One, we think about disobedience in our own lives, and how our disobedience will have negative consequences, even if it's God not specifically coming down and saying, you did X, so now I'm going to punish you with Y. All right, that may not be the case, but disobedience just brings about negative consequences, period. All right? Then we think about this other idea about God doing the work. All right? Because who is it that was essentially going to make sure that they were able to drive out the Canaanites? It was going to be God. God was going to do that. And as the people started to make deals with the Canaanites, God said, you know what? If you're not going to trust me to accomplish the work I said would be done, then I'll leave you to it. And when God leaves us to it, we tend to screw things up. So there you go. I mean, real simple reflections, doing easy Bible study, right? Bible study doesn't have to be scary. I hope that, you'll find these videos helpful, and that you'll, maybe use them devotionally or just whatever you need to. So, you guys should keep reading the book of Judges and reflect on the meaning that it has for us even today. Bye. Yeah, so he died there. That's no fun. Zephath, and devoted it to destruction. Oh, that's friendly. Devoted it to destruction. Four-wheeler.